Welcome to the Goat Show, the show where we celebrate and debate all things great. My name is ZiLLY, aka Ravine. I am joined by my co-hosts, Fresh and Deezy. Gentlemen, are you feeling scared today? Are you feeling a tidbit frightened
I've been scared for the past week.
the past week?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you kind of had a horror incident with your your best friend there tripping you up, messing up that ankle. I don't know. Is it sabotage? Is that a concept for a new movie that we might tell our guests maybe later on?
Yeah, the story of the hanging ankle for sure.
For anybody who doesn't know, if you haven't been watching our live streams, what are you doing? Fresh had a little tangle with his young pup with his ankle with the leash, and I don't know. I think it's sabotage. He says it's an accident. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. But um, with that, man, today's episode, the person we're interviewing today, is a horror legend. Someone who is in that genre of filmmaking, but also has done many, many different things. Commercial work, has done different short films. Has a podcast that I did listen to and I thought was fantastic. So his name is Mike Pecci. We will be getting to him in just a moment. But before we do, Fresh, what do the people out there watching got to do?
You gotta like, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, and I mean, spooky season's coming up. Send it to everybody.
Yeah, if you are a person who enjoys the more frightening things in life, you enjoy horror movies or horror culture or anything like that, this is definitely an episode.
Real horror though, like real horror.
Yeah, not that lame shit, funny horror. We're talking the real shit. All right. If you're into that, then this is definitely an episode to watch. But I think also if you're any kind of filmmaker or interested in film, or if you're interested in doing a podcast, even definitely watch this episode because this gentleman has done a lot of things. I'm going to read a quick blurb here, and then we will get to him. Today's guest is Mike Pecci or Pesci, either way. An award winning horror film director and visual storyteller whose career spans music videos, short films, and innovative new approaches to genre cinema. And I'll add to that also commercial film person and as well a podcaster. With roots in classical film training and a background directing over 30 high profile music videos for artists like Meshuggah, I'm a huge fan of Meshuggah, and Wu Tang Clan, also a fan of Wu Tang Clan. Mike broke into the spotlight with his acclaimed sci fi horror short 12 Kilometers, a film that led to industry recognition, major representation, and new collaborative projects. So, without further ado, Mike Pecci, welcome to the Goat Show. How you doing today?
What's up, fellas? I'm good. That great intro, thank you. I'm a little frightened.
There's no need to be frightened on this show. We wing it half the time. Damn, I don't even know what we're doing today. No, that's not true. I did a little prep, I did a little bit of preparation for this, but welcome to the show. Something we ask every guest who comes on the show is if you could have any superpower or supervillain power, what would it be?
Well, I mean, being that I am a comic book nerdy kid, growing up in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, uh, it was for me, it was Wolverine more than anything else. And I felt like, having the power to heal, having that power to regenerate was cool. I mean, also, part of his superpower was that he was just snarky and kind of a badass. Uh, I kind of live up to that. So, it's dangerous to do in 2025, but I am a Gen Xer that grew up with anti-heroes and tortured souls. And yeah, and I'm actually getting there, man. Like I just recently, we were talking about accidents. I just recently broke my arm in a bad way, like the top, like this whole shoulder. So I ended up going over my handlebars. I was riding and I hit this manhole cover and I broke it and then crushed the top of the bone. And so in here, I've got like this nasty scar that runs all the way down. And now I have titanium. So I've got a titanium plate
You're almost Wolverine, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if I get into like a samurai fight, I just put my shoulder here and then it'll save me. And then if I die, I have to show you guys the X-ray. If I die, you guys can use my arm bone as a nail bat, which is pretty sweet too. So
That's metal right there.
yeah, you can smash zombie faces with that, which would be great.
I'll say, as a Canadian, I'm happy you picked Wolverine, bro.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, like not the Hugh Jackman Wolverine, like the short little stinky dude that has a big old beard and hair all over the place and a drinking problem. And
Yeah, the guy from the comics and the cartoon.
yeah, yeah. And he's kind of like a sex addict too. And he's old. So he's running around banging all sorts of young little characters in that book. So kind of creepy. I'm not trying to be that guy. It came out of my mouth as we were talking about it. That was a
No, man, Wolverine. I mean, that healing factor means high T. You know, so what are you gonna do? I mean, he's living like he's 23 his entire life, so
he's on the T. That's right. That's right.
he's boosting constantly. That's dope, man. Because we're of the same generation, and I definitely grew up on all that shit, comic books and like Image Comics, like in the late '90s, and the Jim Lee stuff, and Chris Claremont, and that whole thing. It was a great era of comic books, man, for sure.
I mean, it's funny how much of an influence I've told the story before, but when I was a kid, I hated reading. I hated it. I still kind of do. Even scripts today, I'm like, oh God, I gotta read this fucking script. But um, my mom was really concerned about it when I was a young kid because I really wasn't picking up books. So at the time, she went to a drugstore. She was at a drugstore and she picked up a couple of comic books off like that circular rack
Yeah,
and came home and threw them down in front of me. And she was like, these at least have pictures in them. So, and I remember she got the first book that I got was a Spider-Man. So it was Amazing Spider-Man. And it was right around the time that Eric Larson was drawing it, and the way he drew the violence in that, because it was pretty violent Spider-Man stuff at that time, which was cool. And then, you know, the relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and the way he was drawing Mary Jane, she was like a mega hot supermodel.
yeah.
As a young kid, I'm like, that's what I want, you know.
I know, different era, man. Now Mary Jane, I don't know what they're doing Mary Jane now, but I remember that shit. Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson, you know, that era of Spider-Man, man.
Yeah, that's how it came in, you know.
Did you keep that hobby up and collect? Did you collect a bunch of different freaking comics and stuff? Are you stacked up?
I've got like 5 boxes back in my parents' attic, which, you know, they're always telling me, "You've got boxes here." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna ship those across country." But I did. I was deep into Spider-Man, and then I was deep into, like everybody, I was deep into X-Men, Punisher. I started to really follow artists, so Jim Lee was, like, the guy. So I was following all of Jim Lee's books, and then, you know, Mark Silvestri and all those guys. And when the big coup happened, where all those artists gave the middle finger to Marvel at their peak, when they were selling out books and breaking records for sales, and they created their own label, which was Image. And so then you had like Wildcats, you had Death Blow, you had Wetworks, you had Spawn, you had Savage Dragon. And so I, of course, jumped ship immediately because it was the artist. And it was a wild fucking time because prior to that, they were still printing books on like newspaper print, which had very sort of muted colors. And one of the big draws, I don't know if you guys remember like the first Wildcat books, but they were all glossy covered and glossy interiors. And they were doing a lot of early computer coloring, and it was just gorgeous and dangerous. Like as a kid, because I was probably 15 or something. As a kid, I was like, these are fucking dangerous books. Like they were mean, violent, and it was cool, man.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I remember I definitely dude, you're giving me a nostalgia trip like crazy. Like I definitely remember that. And then Dark Horse is kind of the other
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were making all the like more mature books and stuff like that. So it hit me right at that time when I'm like becoming a teenager and like getting angsty. And it was like, all right, there we go. Right there for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was the oldest of 4, and I was the only one that read them. I was the only one that ever went into a comic book store. And I remember the comic book store used to be right down the way. It was like in a mall that was right down the way from another store that my mom used to go to all the time. So I'd just go for a ride, and then I would go down to the comic book store, and it was like my own private place. And the rest of the family members didn't give a shit about it. And it was like kind of like being an archaeologist where you would go in, pick up the latest issue, right? Because when I got into Spider-Man, it was like three something, 300 or nah, it was probably earlier. I was like 280 something. So you'd go look for the next issue, but then you'd go back through the bins and you'd start to make your way backwards in time on sort of this mythos that was created. And that's really what I loved about comic books when I was a kid. Nowadays, as you get older, they're always fucking every year they're rebooting it. So it's like Spider-Man #1. I'm like, is this fall within the lineage of this character, or are you guys
Yeah, yeah.
fucking reboot it every year? So I loved that, man. I loved the fact that there were just these bins full of back issues and different storytellers and different artists. I loved it so much so that I thought that that was what I wanted to do. Initially, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and so I trained for that. I was like in painting classes and figure drawing classes and did all that stuff.
What was the school? Andy Kubert or Joe Kubert? There's like a school for Marvel comic drawing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was on like that was it. That was an advertisement in the comics, I think. I remember that. Yeah, yeah. I never did that, and I was such a shitty student that when I graduated, I submitted to art school and I got rejected. So for me, that like immediately just sort of stopped everything. And luckily at the time, I had a job as a manager in a music store, so I was just like, "Fuck it, I'll just do music store stuff for a while." And
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dig into this. So, so you so when did, I guess, filmmaking kind of hit your radar? So you're in comics. You're loving. I think a lot of filmmakers, especially of our generation, were comic book people, and they were influenced by that stuff. And they definitely, I feel like filmmaking has been influenced by the dynamics of sort of the comic book panel in many ways. But when did filmmaking hit your radar? So you were in a music store doing, kind of, and then what has music played a role in terms of your development as a filmmaker?
well, I mean, getting a so this is back when CDs were still crushing, music was still crushing. You'd go. This is before Napster. So, my dream job as a kid, I mean, anybody wanted it, and I lived back on the East Coast. I lived in Boston at that time. So, for me, it was like Newbury Comics. You'd go by Newbury Comics, and that was like, holy shit! Like, talk about the mecca. We go in there, and they have all these comic books. Plus, they had all this really great music and great T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. But it was so hard to get that gig. That was like everybody wanted to work at Newbury Comics, and so I ended up getting a job at another chain called Strawberries, which was more just straight music. And I worked in, it was kind of like a Tower Records. I worked at one of the largest stores in the state, which had like 3 floors. And I went in there when I was 16. I was too young to get a gig or a job. And I went in there and I talked to the manager, and he goes, come back in a half year and I'll give you a job if you're committed to music. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I went home and I just sort of dug deep into classic rock and all sorts of music. And then I finally got the job and I loved it. It was like a part-time job. And it was so cool, man. Like just having this catalog of artists and music that I had never really listened to because my family was always listening to music, but it was kind of like the radio. And so it wasn't like, my family were diehards for any genre. Um, and so I just jumped into it. And I loved it, dude. And I got big into heavy metal. So I was a big metal guy for a while and listening to metal from that time period, which of course everybody was listening to Metallica, but it was like White Zombie, Metallica, Megadeth, uh, Typo Negative. So um, I loved it, dude. And then I rose the ranks pretty quick and I became a manager at that store. And then you get to meet all the A&R reps. So the guys that are coming in and pushing albums.
Sorry, real quick, because I went to school in Boston from 2000 2004. So Newbury Comics was like fucking, yes, the mecca. But you were at that Tower Records, and it was a huge Tower Records for anybody, for any youngins out there maybe watching, there used to be a thing called music stores. I don't know if that's still the case now, but this thing was fucking massive. It was like multiple levels.
I wasn't
And
there, but that I
okay.
was at another one. I was at a competitor called Strawberries, which was on it was
Oh, right. Okay.
in Natick. So it was like off of
Okay.
Route 9 in Natick.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the same vibe. It was like it was their competitor. So that it
Yeah.
was the same shit, multiple stories. And that Tower Records was down in like Copley, I think. And that Tower Records,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
where it
continue. Yeah. So you're there and you're getting really deep into music, meeting these A&R reps. What was that like?
awesome, man. I mean, these guys would come in and they'd want to befriend you as a manager because if they befriended you, then you'd give them like a really great end cap or a great display. So they would always come in with free albums. So it was like once a twice a month or something, and they would come in with a box from like different. So you'd get like the dudes from Sony, or you get the dudes from Geffen, and so like they'd come in with a box of like albums that are coming out. And so I just had this huge collection of free albums, which was really great. And then I was spending my money on buying albums that I wasn't getting for free. And then those dudes would also show up with concert tickets. So you'd end up going to free concerts all the time. And so I loved it. It was like such a cool thing. And I decided after working there for a while as a kid, I'm like, I should probably go to school. Maybe I'll go to school for radio. And so I went to a community college and got my first radio show, which was like at the fucking crack of dawn. It was like 3 a.m. or whatever. It was like super late. And I remember I sat down and the program director came in and he's like, all right, so here's the deal. First 15 minutes, top of the hour, you can play any of the CDs that are marked with a green sticker. Bottom of the hour, you can play any CDs that are marked with a red sticker. And I'm like, so what the fuck am I doing here? Like you've already programmed everything. And so, and then at that time, that was when you started to get a lot of digital music. That was when Napster was starting to come over the horizon, and you had like players like Winamp and all that shit that were blowing people's minds. And I was kind of like predicting the future, and I'm like, this job's going away. So
That's impressive, man. I mean, I remember being around people. I remember I was at my friend went to Berkeley College of Music, and we were at this like forum where it was just like I don't know, just something he invited me to. And I remember there was a guy in the audience who got up and was like, "Listen, everybody, you need to know now that Napster's not your enemy, and in the near future, every single song ever created will be available over the internet." And like everybody was like scoffing at him, including me, kind of. And then, I mean, he knew, so it's impressive that you knew that.
well, dude, if only the fucking record labels weren't greedy bastards and they really jumped on it pretty quick, it would have saved the music industry because the music industry really went to shit. And you had Spotify. Spotify continues to just destroy it. Um, but yeah. So I happened to just take a class for credits, which was a film course. And this is before YouTube. So it's not like I didn't know that movies were made by people, and I wasn't dumb. I didn't think Indiana Jones lived in a little box in my living room, but I really didn't think about it. And then I took this film course, and we watched Blade Runner for the first time. And I remember watching this movie with Harrison. Indiana Jones is in this movie, but it's weird and it's dark and like, what the fuck is this? And then afterwards, the teacher was like, "What'd you guys think of the outfits?" And I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "What did you think of this?" And then it just clicked. And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, there are jobs. People do this. Right. And this is kind of the collection of everything I love. This is what I love about comic books and creating stories within frames and composition. And then this is also what I love about introducing people to new music is conveying an emotion and conveying how I feel for the first time when I listen to a song. And immediately I was hooked. I was like, this is it. And I get asked this all the time on my show where people go, should I go to film school? And I told them, I went down to my guidance counselor at that school and I said, hey, look, I want to change my study and I want to become a filmmaker. He goes, oh, that's great. And I'm like, cool. So can I get a camera? Can I start working on this? He's like, well, no, actually, it's going to take you some time. You got to take all of our accredited courses. So you got to do that. And that's going to take you about a year and a half.
Let me ask you about this though, because like and maybe I'm jumping the gun here a little bit. We'll come back to this AI thing, but I've watched this thing recently where this guy was saying, look, like everything's going to be the ability to create things is going to become much easier. What's going to matter is taste, and that's what's going to distinguish people. And I'm curious about. I mean, I don't know if you took those courses, but do you feel like it's important for filmmakers to really know film history and watch a lot of films and really internalize what's happened in the past?
Yes. So that's two things. Those weren't the courses that asshole was telling me I had to take. Like, I had to take like science and all this other bullshit. And I remember saying to him, like, dude, how much do each one of these classes cost me? And he was rattling off numbers for it. And I go, I'm just doing this so that you can keep your accreditation as a college. I've literally don't, I'm not going to use any of this bullshit when I do what it is that I do. Maybe a writing course, but fuck you. And so then I packed, I packed my bags and I left and I went for a short period of time to New York Film Academy in New York and they taught me how to produce. And then even then I was like, all right, I'm done. And then just jumped into the world of movie making. So to answer your other question, yes, there's a language of cinema. There's a language. Like if you're using a specific lens, there's a over almost 200 years or whatever it is, amount of time where people have seen something shot with this lens. Like right now, I'm using my Fujifilm camera, but I have a 50 millimeter lens on that has it's wide open and very shallow focus. And so what that does, that language is telling the audience that stick with me, stick with what I'm saying. It almost internalizes what I'm saying because of how it's been used in the past. And so the only way to really learn that, you can go through a book and they'll tell you in a book, like, the tech specs, but watch fucking movies. And I'm always telling young kids, go back, get yourself a Criterion account and go back and watch the old classics. And they go, "Ugh, it's in black and white." I go, it's probably better that it's in black and white because you're actually seeing the language stripped down to its bare bones. And go watch silent films because you're seeing the language stripped down where it's like, what does it mean when I take a close up and I cut it with a wide shot? What does that do to you? What does it mean when the camera moves left to right? What does it mean when the actor moves this way? And like, how do you convey emotion with body language? Like, all those things are incredibly important as you sort of progress into the modern storytelling. And it's in the discovery of those things and the learning of those things that you start to find your voice and your style because there's a fucking billion ways to make anything. And so you sit there and you go, what am I obsessed with? When we were kids and I was in film school, everybody was obsessed with David Fincher. It was like Seven, Fight Club came out, and every asshole wanted swinging fluorescent green lights in their shots because it was a Fight Club. And so then, everybody was studying Fincher and what he did, and it's fun. Like when you're a kid, you're in the process of replication of any art that you take. Like if you're a musician and you love Van Halen, the first thing you're doing when you pick up that guitar is you're trying to figure out Eddie's licks, and that process of you trying to figure out that thing, you start to find something that sounds different and you go, "Oh, I like that," and that's my thing now, you know, so it's fun. Like it's a really fun business that is a real cool blend of, road crew, like circus folk, fucking construction guys, and art and like nerds and like just real emotional stuff. And then it's just sort of the smashing of that. And that's what filmmaking is. That's why I love it so much. It's like it's a really fun social gig that you get to create with people around you.
That's one thing about filmmaking. Even now, I think is that it is something where a group of people have to get together and do this thing. Even I mean, no matter what's happening in terms of technology, it's always going to be that way. I'm kind of curious, how important is it to have social skills as a creator, as a director? I mean, do you feel like people need to also learn that in order to be able to be an effective filmmaker?
Yeah, let me give you an example. So, it took me a few years to figure this out. When I do a movie, like one of my films, I was on set, and the whole vibe is this: you show up, you prep, you do everything by yourself. So you do all the prep, you write the script if you're writing it, you storyboard, you sit there and you come up with ideas and questions and things that you want to approach actors with, and you just sort of, you're in your underpants in front of a fucking notepad, and by yourself, you just sort of write all this shit down. And then you go to set and you walk on set, and it's kind of like war, so that you have all these different tents or you have all these different rooms, right? And so for me, I usually walk on set. I go over to craft services first. I see who's over at craft services. I make sure that I'm really cheerful and excited. It's just like, hey, man. And I make sure I know everybody's name, and I make sure everybody that's on there. And, you try to bond with these guys pretty quick. It's one of the reasons why I've always had a beard. I grew a beard when I was 23 because I knew I would be directing dudes that were in their 40s. And so, like, you really look for ways to connect with folks pretty quick. And then you just sort of progress through to the front line, right? So, as you're walking through, you go into the makeup and wardrobe tent, and that's where it's crazy. It's all catty, and there's all sorts of like behind the scenes rumors and shit going on. And you walk into there, you talk to them, and then you go talk to the art team that's been up all night trying to put the set together for you. So they look like shit. They're usually covered in paint and dust, and they're just out of their minds, and like one guy just got into a fight with his wife, and you're just like, all right, man, well, tell me what's going on. And so now you're a therapist.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and you go into another tent, and it's like all the grips and the fucking gaffers, and these guys are covered with mud because 'cause they've been pulling heavy fucking cable, and they're in there, and one guy's back's hurting, and you just bring over a chair, and you're like, "Dude, do that sitting down. Don't stand up. Relax." And then you go they ask you a bunch of questions, and then if you're really slick, you have them involved, and you're like, "So what'd you guys think of that shot last night? Was that?" And these are dudes that are just normally plugging in power cables, and if they feel connected, they're like, dude, I love that shot. And the performance that they did was a little weak in that thing. And you go, yeah, you're right. All right. So then you walk out of there and you slowly make your way to the front line where the camera is. You go check in with the actors, right? You make sure they're in a good fucking mood. And then you go up to the front and it's your DP. It's usually like your production designer, your assistant director. And you just sort of stand next to the camera and you look at the battlefield and you go, "What's the problem? What are we doing? You know, what's going on?" And they like, "I don't know. We thought we were going to do this one approach, but we had to swap that approach." And you go, "Is that still part of the vision? Is that still gonna? Yeah, all right, yeah. Let's do that." Or no, 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 guys, we got to go back and and that's what it is. So it's all this. It's all communication. And whenever I meet like a young nerdy art student that wants to be a director who's like, and he's like, I can't communicate with people. I'm like, dude, you got a lot of shit. A big old awakening coming your way, my friend.
Man, I mean, it's when you say it now, it's obvious, but it's like, I don't think people when they get into filmmaking or whatever really consider that, hey, listen, like you got to be able to work with people, communicate clearly. Do you, when you're on set, do you feel like you need to have your ducks in a row? Like you need to be like, this is the vision, and with each department, kind of you know enough to be dangerous, I'm assuming, and then be able to communicate to them in their language, like this is what I'm going for. Do you feel like that is important to have that preparation?
I do. I mean, not all directors are that way. I mean, these days, Hollywood, they're handing out titles like, you get them for free when you buy a new pair of jeans. I'm a producer. You know what I mean? And so you really have to break through the trauma that all film crews have when they work in this business. Because sometimes you work with someone that's awesome or a team that's really awesome. And then most of the time you work with fucking assholes that are just going to run you into the mud, do long ass fucking days. Every time you have to like put in for overtime, you have to prove it. And it's just this thing. And so most of the time you're engaging with your team and your crew, and they're pretty salty, at least on the East Coast, they're very salty. But they love making movies. And so you quickly have to walk in there and go, guys, I know what you do because I've done it. I've started in this as a cinematographer. I was a lighting tech for years. I'm an editor. I played with the sound crew for years. I've done all these jobs so that when I ask someone to do something, I know how long it should take them to do it, but I also know what it's going to take them to do it. And so knowing those things, it's as simple as like, I don't know if you guys know film sets, but one of the moves when you're shooting in a film set, you typically shoot out all in one direction because behind that camera is the crew, light stands, trucks, all this bullshit. And so when you flop sides, you got to move all that. You got to move the stands, you got to move all the stuff. So when you're shooting the other way, so if you're shooting someone talking this way and then someone talking this way, you got to move all the crap. And so that takes fucking a while to do. And it's hard to do. And so if you plan it right, you go, all right, I'm going to shoot everything on this side of the room first. So it'll be out of sequence. If your actors are down for that, it'll be out of sequence. It'll save me time, save me money. And you guys will only have to move that giant fucking generator once. And if you're an inexperienced director and you come in and you didn't do any planning and you didn't think about that, you go, I don't know. Meanwhile, your guys have been out there like cranking huge stands and putting things in the air and sweating for you and doing all this shit. And then you're just like, we got to swap sides. And those guys are just like, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So immediately you start to lose them. Immediately they're like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And so then you're in trouble. As opposed to if it's me who knows these things or really talented directors who know these things that come from that world, you go, I don't think it's that important for me to swap this one. Like, let's change the blocking of this and move it over here because I know that I'll get more shots and I know I can still make it look beautiful this way. Um, Without fucking everything up and without fucking up the crew and without fucking up all this stuff. And then the crew respects that because they'll go, a lot of times I've had crew go, we'll move, we'll do it. Cause they're very excited and they're very excited, very into it. And I go, I'd rather not have you, break your back. It's only fucking 10 a.m., dude. Bad news is that you're going to have to carry that dolly up 3 flights of stairs in the next hour and a half. So, go get a coffee, you know.
That's really fascinating, man.
For people who want to be a producer, besides communication, what would you say like the other top 3 qualities they should be trying to perfect and better themselves in?
For someone that wants to be a producer, um, well, I think producer is just all people. It is all people shit. So, like at the end of the day, you're not just understanding how your crew works, but you're understanding how to get things from folks. That's your big thing. Like, how do I convince this location to let me shoot there? How do I convince these money people to give us more money, even though we told them that we only needed this amount? It's a flexible, fluid world that we live in. So, how do I get more money out of these people? How do I keep my team within the parameters of our budget? How do I find good talent? How do I, find good scripts? Or what is my process for figuring out if I like to work with this director or these actors? How do I find actors? I mean, a lot of producers, depends on what type of producer you are. A lot of producers are out there just fucking engaging and they're just partying or going to certain events just so that they're in the room and having a good time and establishing relationships with the most valuable commodity in our business, which is the talent. Talent is what gets money. Talent is what gets movies greenlit. So there's a lot of skills. There's a lot of skills needed for that, and producing is a very stressful job. Oftentimes it's a very thankless job. I think that it makes sense why producers get the Academy Award when they get Best Picture because usually that producer's been with it since day one, negotiated the rights to the script and then found the fucking creators and then had to deal with everybody's heartache and everybody's bullshit and then, puts the whole movie together. So it's a big gig. And the only way I don't really think you can learn you go to like AFI or something, and I know they have producing courses, but the only way really to learn how to do it is either to work underneath another producer and sort of shadow them and basically absorb all of their skill, or just go guns blazing and try to figure it out for yourself and fail and fail and fail, and then
That was gonna be one of my next question is what, in your opinion, producer or any other aspect of filmmaking, is it better to, do I call it the Hader route, right? The Bill Hader route where he was a PA and he was on the set and he was, you're rising through the ranks steadily, and then at some point you make your first short film, then you do your first feature. Like, is it better to do that step approach, or do you feel like it's better to say like, fuck it, we doing this? Make all the mistakes and just learn and just keep going.
I mean, it's a bit of both, right? So because with movies, you need people and you need people around you. You need people that are going to help you do things. Like you're not an octopus. There just sort of hits a point where you don't have enough hands to physically do what it is that you need to do. Like just setting up this bullshit today, it's still like, I wish I had someone that was fucking doing it because I'm like running around doing audio and doing all this crap all at the same time. And even if you do attempt to do that, you're sacrificing something because you're spreading yourself so fucking thin. So when I was a kid, living in Boston, it was before Boston had a film scene, and there was still pretty bad reputation about shooting out there because the Teamsters were pretty intense. And so there really wasn't a big community. There was Emerson, there were a lot of film students and stuff that were there. And so I made it my goal to sort of embed myself with whatever sort of film student community or independent film community that was existing in that city. And the best way to do that is to see who's shooting what. Could be a commercial, could just be an independent film, and go offer to be a PA for free. And if you go PA, it's a great gig. You go there and you get to actually look around and see what everybody does. And if you're attentive and not on your fucking phone and you're aware, it's awesome. Because then you just sort of show up and you go, "Oh shit, that's how sound works on this," or this is what's going on in the production office. And wow, getting permits for locations is a fucking really intense thing. Or oh wow, I love in the camera department. I'm a camera PA and I love organizing lenses and gear. And so you start to really learn about all these different things. And if you're good, people need you. And it's a gig job. So, if you're working in the lighting department as a PA, they may be jumping right onto the next job and they'll go, "We really like you. Do you want a small position on our next gig?" And you go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then you're jumping to that next gig. And then when you're not doing that, you should shoot your own stuff. I mean, it's so easy right now to shoot things because you can do it with your fucking iPhone. If it's a blend of those two things, and I say it on my show all the time, it takes 8 years for anybody to give a shit about you. Like, it takes that long. And
I think
so,
that's true in any field, I think. But I mean, I'm sure in filmmaking for sure. But
yeah,
yeah, you got to put in the time, right?
8 years before I think I got recognized and paid for what I did. Like,
Yeah.
sure, I had small gigs that I was getting paid for, like helping out here or being a grip or doing all these sweat equity gigs. But it takes that time. So in that time period, if you're doing your research, watching great movies, uh, watching a film, feeling something from it, and then watching it again, watch it with the audio off and see if you still feel it with the audio off. Like, just go through the process of breaking movies down. You're learning the language, and all those things that you like are in your brain.
It's so funny you say with the audio off. So there was something. My grandmother recently passed, but I'd been sitting with her one day, and people like to shit on or have shat on Adam Sandler a lot, right? And they're like, he makes all these silly movies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm sitting with her. It's Netflix. I'm like, what can I watch with grandma that, we can both enjoy? She's Indian, doesn't speak the language at all, right? So it's like, all right, an Adam Sandler movie was there. I'm like, that he makes funny faces. I'll put that on. So I put that on, and like, she was laughing hysterically at the movie, and she doesn't understand anything that he's saying. He doesn't, the little jokes or whatever that I was laughing at. She's not understanding that, but she's just laughing at his, the way he moves, and it made me realize, like, oh yeah, like a movie should. It's a movie. You're watching it. It should work, even if you can't see hear the sound. You should still get something out of it, just visually.
Yeah, dude. I mean, when I went to New York Film Academy, they taught us how to make movies, silent films. So we were shooting back then on film still. So I shot on black and white film, and then we edited the old school way on Steambex, where you would cut and tape your edits and do your whole bit. And that process, which is like the old Hollywood way of doing it, really taught me how to make movies visually first, and then dialogue is second for me. Story overall is, of course, important, and that is, the structure and the train that we all go on when we decide to sit down and watch a movie. But it's visuals for me first and foremost. And I still do it, man. I mean, my big movie, 12 Kilometers, I shot that movie in a language I don't speak. I shot that movie in Russian. I don't speak Russian. And it became a study of body language and body movement. And it was my goal for that film to have an American audience watch it. And if they didn't want to read subtitles, they still knew exactly what was going on. They still know exactly what the whole thing's about. And then the subtitles just then become cherry on the top, where you're like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. So that's movies for me. I think we live in a time period right now where writers are king, and we are in this, I call it the plot trough, where it's just people that are just writing out plot points, and they're boring fucking things. Streamers just loaded with them, where it's like, guys, someone's talking. Like they go do something and then they spend 2 scenes talking about what they just did, like, we crashed that car, we built it out. And you're like, I know, we fucking saw that. Like, how about we see you do something else? How about we see you do something?
Man, it drives me crazy with these new streaming movies. It's like, because I mean, I've never made a film or anything, but I love movies, and I've, you know Tarantino was always an inspiration, so I'd read his scripts, and it's just like the first rule I thought was show don't tell. Isn't that the first rule? And like all these movies, I'll watch like 15 minutes, and it's like exposition, fucking crazy in the beginning. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this shit. You need to show me all this stuff. You need to show me this world. I mean, I don't know. Why do you think that is with these like new stream movies? Just laziness or what?
Now, show means money. Showing things and actually doing things is more expensive than having two people sitting in a fucking warehouse somewhere, you know, barely production design, and just going like, Frank's a real badass. You're like, can I see him be a badass? This guy, he killed all these people. And you go, oh, that must have been really cool for whoever was there to see him do that. The fact, watch you tell me about it, that is not fucking cool. And that's most shit, man. And a lot of what we're getting right now in our business is money driven. And so, my favorite, even in photography, in the world of photography, because I did that for a while. My fiance is a big photographer, and you have all these styles now where it's like, this is lo-fi. We're shooting this on with film, and we're not processing it. I go, it's because I don't fucking pay them anything. So like the poor photographer is like, how do I do something that is interesting to me that doesn't cost me anything? Oh, I'll go get a handy cam from my youth and run around and shoot some musicians with like an old DV camera. And you go, there's no fucking budget there. That's really what it comes down to is the money with this shit.
Yeah, yeah. I know for your short film, 12 kilometers, you did practical effects with I believe a biologist. Can you explain that whole, well, I guess what you did, but also your feeling on practical versus using visual effects.
Would you want the paraphrase story, or do you want the long one?
Whatever's interesting to you. That's what we want to hear the most of. So
Well, I mean, the truth of it is that fast forward past me getting out of film school, and then I eventually got into doing music videos. And then I formed a partnership and had a production company for years. And we were trying desperately to make money as a production company with music videos. But like what we were discussing before, Napster really came in and fucked up the whole music industry. And the byproduct of that is all of the jobs that sort of circulate that industry, like music video directors and photographers, they all suffer where the budgets start to fucking plummet. And so it was really difficult to make a good living as a music video director, almost impossible to make a good living as a music video director. And so then, we had to pivot our business and now we're doing commercials and that's a completely different game. Like there's an old fat asshole with a fucking cigar and he's got a warehouse full of plastic and he's like, I need to sell this shit. You know what I mean? And you're coming in going, all right, how do I sell this guy shit? Um, and I hated that. And I went on a date with this girl in Boston in the winter, and she was like, I want to go ice skating. And I had never put ice skates on before. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And there sort of hit a point where she's like, you never want to do what I want to do. And I was like, okay, all right, there's the fucking loaded lead. I was like, all right. So we go and we put on ice skates and I'm putting these blades on my feet and I'm walking out on the ice. And she's pulling me around like a child. And it was very emasculating, and I said to her, just give me a second, just skate away and I'll figure this out. And there's like this little like 10-year-old or whatever next to me, and I watch him and he pushes off, and I go, if you can do that, I can do that. So I push off and I slip and I go completely 180 and I land on the back of my head. And the last thing I hear is like an oak barrel crack, and then I'm out. And so I wake up in intensive care. I've cracked my skull. I have a hematoma forming on the top of my brain. And what they normally do is they drill into your skull to release the pressure, but it's on the main blood vessel. So the doctor was like, if I drill like a scotch too deep, you bleed out and you die. And so we're going to see if the bleeding stops. You should call your family. We're not going to let you go to sleep. And fingers crossed, you know?
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Yeah. 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 So I was in the hospital with that. And the side effects of all that was that I was convinced that my inner voice wasn't my own. I was convinced that someone else was controlling me. And I was fucking excited about it because I'm a horror director. So like I would just tell at the time the girl, I'm like, you got to record what I'm thinking. And I would just tell her all the shit that I was going through. And I ended up making it through and then went into 5 months of recovery for the concussion. And I wrote the script for 12 Cam, the early script for 12 Cam. And when I came out of it after that near death experience, I'm like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. I don't want to do bullshit commercials. All I want to do is make a movie. And on my deathbed, my only fucking regret was that I hadn't started to do a movie that I cared about. And so I immediately went and made a proof of concept film, which was the short film 12 Cam, 30 minutes long, and changed everything. Yeah, changed everything, dude. And I had a lot of fun making it. I shot it in a language I don't speak. We found amazing Russian actors, and one of the things that I needed to do with it because I knew that I didn't have a big budget for CGI. If you don't have a good budget for bad CGI, looks like shit. Like you can't, you just can't. But if you're shooting things practically, you could shoot something that might look like shit, but it looks cool through the lens, and you're like, oh, cool, and you can fake it.
So it's interesting that because I always thought it might be the opposite. I've had friends in VFX, and they do say the same thing. They're like, listen, like if I like I had a friend, she's like the lighting person for VFX for this like one movie that I won't mention, but and I saw it and I was like, ooh, like this looks like shit. And then I didn't even have to say anything. She's like, please don't judge my work based on this movie. Like they literally called everybody in last minute, not enough time, rush job, all this stuff. I even don't even want my name in the credits, but I have to have it there for, whatever political reasons. So I was like, okay, I mean, that makes sense. But it's kind of interesting that you're saying that with practical effects, you can actually have more flexibility than with visual effects.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I mean, it's um, for instance, well, I mean, let me tell the story and then I'll tell you for instance on that. So in our story, there is this creature that ends up taking the form of this liquid. And so I was doing the research before I even decided to do the movie. And I'm like, I got to do stuff practically. It'd be great to be able to puppeteer fluid. Like, how do you puppeteer fluid? And so I was doing all this research and I came across Ferrofluid, which is essentially an oil that has metal particles in it. And so you can introduce it to a magnet, and then it'll create all this really cool sort of texture. And you've seen like at its base form, it forms these spikes. And then you could pull it around with a magnet. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And when I was doing the research on it, there was this guy who is a macro photographer, but also a biologist. And I was like, this guy has beautiful imagery. I'm just going to write to him and ask him if it's a pain in the ass to use, essentially. Like, how do you use it? And so I wrote him an email and I said, hey, man, I'm making this movie. Um, and I know you've got all this experience. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on what it's like to use this stuff. And he wrote back to me and he goes, can I read the script? And I was like, okay. So I sent him the script and he read the script and then writes back to me and goes, I'll do it. And I was like, you'll do what? Calling you to get some stuff. He goes, no, 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 I want to do it. I want to do all the effects. And I was like, okay. And he goes, just come to my house. He lived out in Pennsylvania in like Amish country. He's like, come to my house and we'll shoot in my basement for 2 days and we'll get you all sorts of great stuff. And I was like, okay. And so I went and I got in a car with my assistant for years, my buddy Tony. And we're driving and he goes, this is how we die. This guy fucking
Yeah, come to my basement.
Dude, that sounds like a horror movie right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
He's like, we're going to get murdered by a bunch of Amish dudes. And so I was like, well, it'll be fun. It'll be a good story. And so we went and we spent, it was very inexpensive. It was great. And we went and spent 2 days in his basement. We did everything from like, he built like these tiny little surfaces that like are as big as a dime, right? That we were shooting on with macro lenses. And then we went and got like sheep's brains and cut those in half. And we started to feed the fluid into sheep's brains. And then I would be able to puppeteer the sheep's brains with a magnet, high powered magnets. It was fun, man. And to bring it back to that point on finding things with practical, there's an epic shot in the movie where I'm just trying to frame it up. And there's this like bubble of this fluid and I've lit it overhead and it looks like, like a Stanley Kubrick thing, right? Because it's so huge on screen and it's literally the size of your pinky, your pinky fingernail, and it's massive on screen. And I'm just moving the camera to find it. And as I move across the surface, I'm seeing all these dust particles, but it looks like rocks. And so I just sort of do this move and I go, oh, that's cool. And so then shoot that a couple times. And then you just find stuff that you really weren't planning on. And so then when you screen it for folks, they go, how'd you ever come up with the fucking, and you go, I found it, dude, as opposed to CGI where, you can't do that. It looks like shit all the way to the very last second with CGI.
Yeah, that makes sense. Happy accidents in the process of just learning. Well, let's talk about your podcast because I think your podcast is from. I heard one episode and it's basically you talking movies, and I do want to get I want to hear your thoughts on some things some movies recently that have come out. But my understanding of your podcast, it's called. Let me make sure I get the exact name. In love with the process, right? And that's what we're just talking about, right? So maybe you can tell us about the podcast and what's the inspiration behind it and why that name.
Well, it's funny that I call it In Love with the Process because a lot of people just gripe on that show, which is funny. I started it about 6 years ago. And really it was because as a music video director, doing videos for like Meshuggah, there's a ton of fans for that kind of thing. And I had a lot of younger filmmakers writing to me all the time going like, how do you do it? How do you set up your business? They would ask me all these questions and I would try to respond to those emails. And it just takes a lot of time to respond to emails, And, I did a little bit of research at that time and I'm like, no one's really out there telling us how this business actually fucking works. No one's really being real about it. It's always like, living my best life, fucking Instagram filter bullshit. And I wish I had known the realities before I got into the business. I wish that I wasn't basing my business strategy on bullshit, which was, all I have to do is go make music videos and then I'll get a big movie. They'll give me a big alien movie. Truth is, you come out here and you meet with an executive or production company. They don't give a fuck about your music videos. They don't care about any of that stuff. So I was like, all right, look, I'm going to do a show that is honest and I tell folks what I've been through and what I'm going through, but I'm also going to get people on the show that I respect and I want to hear how they went through it and what the reality of what their thing actually is. And then the show started to expand and it became bigger. And was like, I'll just do the podcast about whatever I want it to be about. So then I had chefs on because I was doing a lot of like chef videos. And then I love barbecue. I'm like a weekend pit master. And so now I'm doing barbecue guys. And then it's music guys from my years as a music video director. So now I have like, Czarface on the show and like all those guys coming in. And the show just keeps building and building. And with 12 km, that movie suddenly got a lot of traction. My little short got a lot of traction. And now I've got an agent. Now I've got a manager. And now they want me to come out to Los Angeles and go meet with all these different production companies. And I'm sitting in Michael Bay's office or I'm sitting in Sam Raimi's office. And we ended up pitching and getting the movie in with Ridley Scott's guys. And they loved it. And they're like, hey, let's produce this together. And so I hit a point where I'm like, I got to move to LA now because, I'm going to do all this. And there was a bunch of other shorts and all sorts of other stories in between there. So then I moved out here. And once I landed out here, COVID hit. And so then the show became real big because everybody was like looking for inspiration. And then my guests get bigger because I'm out here in Los Angeles. So, I just had Thomas Jane on the show. For those of you who don't know, he played the Punisher back in 2003 or whatever, 2006. And he was in Boogie Nights. And so now you've got people coming in and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I love it, man. It's kept me sane. Um, if you guys want to know what it's like to try to make a movie, fucking great show. If you guys are looking for inspiration as anybody who decides that you're no longer going to take a 9 to 5 job and try to navigate what that means, you'll love it. I mean, dude, everybody's going to be there with AI right now. Everybody's going to be there. So it's very relevant on like, I'm literally doing an entire series on how to survive AI and what the truths of AI are.
All right. Well, okay. I know you're doing a lot on that, but I mean, let's talk about it because this is the big, gigantic, super elephant, in the room is all of this AI stuff. What are your thoughts on AI and filmmaking? I know there's concerns from sort of like a job standpoint, but in terms of the movies and quality, I feel like there's benefits and negatives. What are your thoughts?
AI is a tool, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like when photographers were freaking out when Photoshop came out, right? And Photoshop did away with a lot of things, right? So you no longer had like developing rooms, even though you still do for boutique things. You didn't have to do developing the same way. You didn't have to do cut and paste compositions the same way. It really sort of changed the game, and there was a whole lot of people that were upset about it, and they were like, "Did you use Photoshop on this? Ew," like there's a whole photography purist thing. Um, but now it's a tool that everybody uses, and I feel the same way. AI is everywhere. I think everybody thinks when they think of AI and they don't know this business, I think they think of Terminator. And they think of like, a fucking metallic skeleton that's in a closet somewhere going, I am going to take your job. And it's everywhere, dude. Like, and if you're a filmmaker, you're always having to use as many tools as you can to get the stuff that wasn't shot on set the right way, the audio that sounds like shit, to get things to work. And it's smoke and mirrors. That's all movies are. It's really smoke and mirrors. And so I love a lot of the AI tools that are out there, man. Like audio wise, fucking A. They're really cool. Like the cleanup that you can do, or you can have it with the permission of your actors, you can have it adjust what is said, change the inflection of what's said, instead of having the actor come all the way back and have to do an ADR for like one word or two words. So now you can do that for color grading, for tracking, for compositing, for removal. Let's say that you're, shooting out here and you want the street to look like it's East Coast, but there's like 5 fucking palm trees on the horizon. You don't have to wait around for someone that's an After Effects artist to go in there and remove that shit. You can do it instantly with different programs. So it makes it faster for you, which is great. And I think that if all AI does is make it less expensive for me to make a great movie, that means I don't have to be beholden to these assholes for their money. So now I can just go, whoa, this thing that would at one point in time cost me $30 million will only cost me $5 million. So now I don't have to worry about making back the $30 million production budget plus the $35 million advertising budget. So now I have to make 60 or $70 million return before it's considered a successful movie. Fuck that. So like if I can cut down all my costs and still deliver on a high range, then hell yeah. Because then I could do whatever I want. The guys aren't going to say to me like, Mike, you can't put that scene in the movie because we have to appeal to middle America if you're going to get that 60 or 70,000 or 70 million back. And I'm like, dude, I only have to make 5 million back. Maybe if you guys have spent 15 million on advertising on my $5 million movie. But that's a good thing. And I think that the big issue that I have with AI isn't AI. The big issue I have has always been in the movie business, has always been in our business since day one. It's fucking scumbags. It's humans. It's scumbags. It's the people when you go do a job, right? They fucking lowball you. So you go in and you know that you're going to go do a commercial for somebody. And let's say back in the day when I was doing ads for colleges, I'm going to make a fucking ad for you that's going to end up on a billboard. If one person sees that ad and they pay tuition, it's $65,000. One person. That is going to probably bring in, let's say conservatively, 200 people at $65,000 per person that comes in. And so when you're talking to these producers, they're like, well, we've got like $5,000. Dude, are you out of your mind? And they're like, yeah, see what you can pull together, see what you can do.
Out of that 13 million that you got, you have $5,000.
Yeah, and we want a complete buyout on everything. So we don't want to have to pay you rights for anything. We don't want to have to pay the actor rights. It's like that actor's face is the face of your brand. They're the face that people are looking at going, that's me. I should be that person. You should be paying that person to do that. Because now if that actor tries to go do anything else, the casting folks are going to be like, oh, no, you're the brand of the pharmaceutical company. So them getting more work is going to be twice as difficult. So you have these fucking scumbags that have existed since day one. And even worse, when you do agree upon something and they're like, oh, we're sorry, we don't have the money right now. Oh, it's a net 90. It's a net 60, so you don't get paid for 60 days. So you've already negotiated a super low rate and then you're sitting around waiting for that rate. And who's not net 90? Your fucking landlord or, your car payment is not net 90. And so these guys are just scumbags and they're just always doing that shit. And now with some of this AI tech and the ability that it has to replicate, it puts these scumbags in a position where they could be even worse and just go like, oh, you know what? We just want to replicate the Starbucks ad that this guy made, but we want to put this product in it. That's all we need. And so then they'll use generative AI or Runway, one of these other programs to just take their product, put it in that other fucking ad, have it slightly change it a little bit so it doesn't register copyright issues, and then pay some poor filmmaker who's like, I need a full-time job because he can't make rent to fucking prompt it. And then boom, those assholes are those assholes. And that's happened with the advancements of technology for everything. When shit went on the internet, all the music video producers and the record labels were like, well, we're not going to give you MTV budget because it's just the internet. And it's like, asshole, this is now more focused on your audience. This is going to hit 4 times the amount of fucking people on YouTube because of it being in their algorithm, as opposed to them randomly having to be up at 10:30 at night to see this video on Headbangers Ball. Like, fuck off.
Your Meshuggah video, and I'd seen that video before. And I didn't realize you directed it. That video is 35 million views on YouTube. Like, that's insane. You would never get 35 million views on MTV.
We made nothing on that fucking video. And the backstory on that was that they initially, because the video is all about our character descending into hell. And the idea was that we were going to watch this guy go down 12 stages of hell. That was the original idea. And they gave us a decent budget for it. Hold on, I got to get rid of this thing on the screen here. Sorry, guys. And they gave us a decent budget for it. And then like a week or 2 weeks before filming, they called us up and they go, guys, we got to cut your budget. It costs too much for the album art to be made. And we're like, all right, so what are we cutting? And like by a third or something? And they're like, no, we're cutting it more than a half. It was like 3/4. And so the budget just went. So then immediately I'm like, well, I guess it's 3 stages of hell, not fucking 12 stages of hell. Right. And so then now I have to shoot this video in this like 12 by 12 room, and we're trying all these tricks, and we have to work harder. And so now as a filmmaker, I have to pull shit out of my ass to try to make this look good. Right. So I go through the process of filming as much as I can and getting into fights on set, and everybody's under high stress. It's a high stress fucking gig. Right. And so we shoot this video. I'm on this tangent. Let me know if you don't want to hear it, but this is crazy.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. If it's crazy, we want to hear it.
So we shoot it, and of course we're not happy with it. Me and my business partner at the time, we watch it and we know what this video was supposed to be, right? And we pull this out of our ass and we put this thing together for the crap money that we got for it. And then we turn it in, and we kind of turn it into the label like, oof, you know what I mean? Like the whole like, it's just sort of handed into them. The label gets back to us and they go, it's awesome. And we're like, is it though? And they're like, yeah, it's awesome. And we're like, okay, maybe we're just too close to it. It's cool, huh? And they go, yeah, the band fucking loves it. And we're like, oh shit, all right, cool. Because it's, we went through the trauma of trying to make this thing. And he's like, yeah, the band's coming to town. They're going to be playing the show. And they're playing with like Ministry and Fear Factory, like all these big bands from metal. And we're like, whoa, cool, man. And they're like, just come hang out. Come meet the guys. Because we didn't meet them. So we like, come meet the guys and hang out in the tour bus. It'll be a blast. And they're fucking pumped. And we're both like, wow, and so we're going. It was like, we did it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We made this thing, and so we go, we show up to the tour bus. And I don't know, as a kid growing up, you always heard those stories about rock and roll, right? You hear the stories about how crazy it was and how debaucherous the tour buses are and how nuts it is. And so there's a piece of you that's like, I get to go hang out with rock dudes. This is going to be cool, man. And you get on the bus and it's like bands playing Xbox. It's like the most boring thing when you get on these buses. They're just like nerding out, in front of their TV. And so, we walk on, and these guys are great dudes. Meshuggah are fucking great guys. And so we walk, and I think they're Swedish, so they're from Sweden or Norwegian. And so we walk on the bus, and they're just sort of like, who are these guys? You know what I mean? And the label guy's there, and he's like, oh, this is Mike and his business partner. They're here because they did the video. And they kind of look at us sideways, and they're like, we haven't seen the video. And so then the label guy just sort of sneaks off the bus. And so it's just us and the band. And they're like, do you have it? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, Would you play it for us? I'm like, yeah. So we stick it on the TV and we have to sit it and watch it with these guys. And we finish the video and it's fucking silent, quiet on the bus. And I'm one of these people that like can't sort of take it. And my business partner's like freaking out. And I'm like, so what do you guys think? You know, like trying to be positive about it. And one of the guys, I won't say who, but one of the guys stands up, he goes, I hate it. I hate I hate it. And he just walks off the bus. He's like, I hate it. And so then, you know, one of the other guys who's really nice, everybody loves him. And he's like, look, we respect all the work you guys put into it. We really like it. It's just that we had different expectations on it. Um, blah, blah, blah. And so we're devastated, right? So they tell us this and we're like, fuck. And we just pour off the bus, right? And we're just like, what an asshole for putting us in that position, the guy from the label, and then being in that position. And so then we are like standing there and we go, well, fuck it. Let's make the most of this night. So we go see Ministry. We end up meeting the lead singer from Fear Factory, which leads us to more work. And we get more work out of that night just by hanging out on the stage. And so then the video releases for Meshuggah and it goes fucking viral and it's huge. And the numbers are huge. And everybody loves the video. And they ended up writing us a letter apologizing. They're like, we were totally wrong. The video is fantastic. We love the video. And I want to.
But you got to understand, right? Because they're artists too. So like, as an artist, when you had the same vision, right? You had a bigger vision, and then you had to present them something you weren't happy with, right? So like, I could see how in the moment it was like, fuck, man, this wasn't it. But at least it redeemed itself. You know what I mean?
Well, it just goes to show. I mean, the video is what the video is. The numbers are what the numbers are, not necessarily because of my work on it. It's because the song is so iconic and the song is legendary. So, regardless, they probably could have shot like a snot on a napkin and it would have still had absolute crazy numbers. But it's nice to be involved with it. Those guys are really great dudes. And what's so funny is that it's like Fight Club. So when it comes to Meshuggah, like I'll walk into a place in the middle of nowhere. I'll be in Europe and I'll walk into a place with a Meshuggah shirt on and they'll go, Meshuggah. And I go, yeah. And they go, yeah, the bleed video. Did you like it? And I go, I directed that video. And they just like beers get slid down the bar. You know what I mean? It's like this. It's this thing that happens, and it still fucking happens. I was just posting music videos on my Instagram because I haven't in a while, and I posted the other big one we did was for Killswitch Engage, the Always video, and I still have people writing to me like monthly on that video, and that came out over 10 years ago, and people are still like, that video means so much to me, and it's crazy. That's crazy, dude. It's cool stuff.
Here, but I want to ask you just one last question, and it's kind of a big one. But are we living in a horror renaissance? It seems like the superhero thing is going away. It's some of these recent movies haven't quite landed, but then things like say Weapons, which I fucking loved. It seems like there's new money coming into sort of the genre of horror for this new, I guess this new, I don't know, the A24 vibe, but then there's also the Terrifier vibe. What are your thoughts on horror as it exists and if we're going through a new renaissance in the genre?
So horror has always been successful one way or another. I mean, it was kind of the bastard stepchild of movie genre for quite some time, and it was considered like trashy and B flicks, B movies was what horror was, and it really wasn't getting the respect. Still kind of doesn't. Although for the first time we had a Academy winning or Academy nominated horror movie last year with the Demi Moore one. Which is barely a horror movie. So yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the genre is still very successful. And people go to see horror movies the same way that people go to ride on a roller coaster. What I love about making horror movies is that I can experience something like cracking my skull or breaking my arm, and know how to convey that feeling to you. So that way you can go sit in an audience and know what it feels like, to the best of our ability, know what it feels like to break your arm without actually breaking your arm. And so you get to go get that juice. You get to get that dopamine. So like, what's it like if there's a fucking serial killer in my house chasing me with a knife? Boom, let's go do that. I get to live vicariously through that. And then like music, you start to have subgenres within that horror genre where people like, I love slashers, I love gory films, I love, dramatic horror, or what studios call elevated horror, which in my opinion is just a movie from another genre that they couldn't get greenlit. So they put a scary scene in it and they call it elevated.
Right, right. That's funny.
I mean, so like, yeah, it's a big part of what's going on in the genre. But those movies they continue to be very successful. And the hard thing about being a horror filmmaker today is that studios and production companies want to pay you nothing for it. So they want you to be like, hey, make this for 2 million, make this for 5 million. If you're lucky, make this for like 10 million, 15 million. And then we'll turn it around and make 135 million profit. So that's like they're all out there looking for scratch tickets, essentially looking for scratch tickets. And so then the game becomes very pitchy, where it's like you turn the light off, you turn the light on. Fuck, I jump in a swimming pool, I come out of a swimming pool. Oh, you know what I mean? Like on the page, people like, wow, that's jump scary and weird. And I don't mind that shit. I just think that there's really great. I love cosmic horror, like movies like Mandy. I love my favorites are like John Carpenter's The Thing. Um,
Well, before you go off, because I got to get my get back, because you made me do it to watch 12 km. What's your top three? What's your top three horror films of all time, Mike?
this week, I would say The Thing, number one, Jaws, number two. Um, and then, you know what? I'm going to go off on a little tangent and say The Autopsy of Jane Doe, number three.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that actually.
You guys haven't seen that one. There you go. Autopsy of Jane Doe. Watch that. You guys will dig it. You guys will dig it.
All right, cool, cool. I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, yeah. And for the audience, what you were just talking about, the only way you could see my movie 12 km, because it's not released online, is that you have to write to me on Instagram and send me your 3 favorite horror movies. And if I agree with you, you'll get a link. If I agree with you, you'll get a dude, I've been doing this since 2016, 2017. We went viral in 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and I've been viral since. My inbox is full of thousands and thousands and thousands of messages.
Oh, some of my favorite Instagram content is you responding to people whose messages got lost in your hidden. Like, it's just been so great lately, bro.
Look, I mean, dude, because most people, it's been such a great thing. Like this, it was an accidental thing I did. Honestly, it was just me being a dick on a podcast. And I was on someone else's show because it was a proof of concept movie that I was never going to release to the public anyways. We got rejected from all these different film festivals. And the movie did its job. It literally got me in the office of Ridley Scott. So it did its job. If someone said, Mike, you can cut us a check for $35,000 to go meet Ridley Scott and be in his office, I would have been like, and written that check. But this was that. This was the thing. So at the end of the day, I'm good. Agent, this movie career, great. So I really had no intention of releasing it to the general public. But I have a lot of podcast fans that are always hearing me talk about it. And they said, well, how can we see it? And as a dick move, I was like, sure. Send me your 3 favorite horror movies. And if I agree with you, then I'll fucking keep up with it. And I just assumed that was just going to go out to whoever was listening to that show. But then it went viral. And there was this one guy that made a really great clip for it on Instagram. What's his name? Big Vic. And his clip was like, there's this guy and I did this thing and the 3 favorite horror movies. And at the end, he smartly wrote, is this guy pretentious or genius? Which is a fucking loaded statement, right? And so then underneath it, you have anybody who's ready to get into some shit, just go asshole, pretentious. And what that does, Instagram registers negativity more than it does positivity. So when you see me post reviews, I'll post a positive review, and at the same time, I'll post a negative review. Instagram will show my positive. I've got like 176,000 followers. Instagram will show that to 3,000 people, but it'll show the negative to 60,000 people. And so then what I realized was that in the comments of that shit, when people start to get wild, I just go right in and I'm just like, "Oh, yeah?" And they go, "Oh, shit, it's the director." And so then they're like "Oh, can we see the movie?" I go, "I don't know, you sound like an asshole. Can you see the fucking movie?" So then the engagement goes, and my favorite are the guys that'll write to me. I had this one guy, he's like, "I hope you fucking die." He's like, "I think you're a huge piece of shit. Everything you do, your mother should be dead for having given birth to you. Like, just like your movie is so fucking awful." And so then I bait them online. I just write back to them and I'm just like, "Hey man, I'll refund you. I'll refund you the amount that you paid for this." And they go, "What do you mean? I didn't pay anything." I go, "Exactly. You didn't fucking pay a goddamn thing for it." And so then I'll do the whole bit and then I'll just post it because it's a negative thing. And Instagram's like runs that up. So then all my fans jump on it and they go, "Fuck this guy." And I was like, yeah. Cool. But thank you to the dude for continuing to keep it viral. Thank you, buddy.
Well, Mike, real quick. So what do you got on the horizon? You got a new project that you're working on that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I've got a couple new films. So 12 Cam is out and about. I made a movie called Come Home, which just wrapped up its festival circuit last year. We won all the festivals for that, which is great. And if you want to see that, you can write to me. And we just wrapped. You guys are the first show I'll actually talk about this on, besides my own show.
Oh, exclusive. What's going on? What are you giving us?
So I just did a new, really cool experimental horror film with I co-created it with my fiance Gina, who's like this amazing fashion photographer. So it's like this really interesting silent film that mixes fashion and like classic horror, like old Universal Studios horror stuff. I worked with the amazing David Dismalshin. Do you guys know he played Polka Dot Man on Suicide Squad? He was in fucking Dune. He was in the latest Blade Runner movie.
He was in that, I think the Devil. What was that movie called where it's like a late night show? I watched that. Yeah, yeah.
Late Night with the Devil. Great fucking
Yeah.
he's in it. He's amazing. We have this really great model, Sedona. It's really fucking cool, man. And it's not out yet. We just finished it. It's gorgeous. It's a small piece. But we are in film festivals. We're pushing it out to film festivals, and then we'll be doing some sort of release for it. So it's very exciting. It's gorgeous. It's a really cool. I think I submitted to TIFF. We haven't heard. Is TIFF already done, or have they released their? Yeah, I think I released the TIFF. We're still waiting on a bunch. Film festivals is a whole other podcast. I could tell you what a fucking it's like you're setting a bonfire and throwing cash into it when you're doing film festival submissions. Uh, but I know we got into one, which is great. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
All right, awesome. Well, whenever that comes out or whenever that hits the circuit, please let us know. Maybe we'll have you back and we can talk about that more. Listen, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show, spending the time, giving us so much incredible knowledge, and we wish you much
Cheers,
success. And cheers to you. We toast the ghosts on this show. Cheers.
Cheers.
You are a goat.
Cheers to you guys, man. Thank you for having me on.
Incredible.
Thank you for letting me run my fucking mouth.
Hey, anytime, man.
blast,
Anytime.
bro.
Thank you for this is
A lot of
fantastic.
insight. A lot of insight.
Listen, all y'all filmmakers out there dreaming, out there wanting to make stuff. First of all, check out the show notes. We're going to have all of Mike's links there, and we're going to have the podcast link. I've listened to the podcast. I really loved the episode that I listened to. And I'm gonna, it's in my Spotify now, so it's one of those things
I
when I'm riding,
downloaded
I'm gonna put
Spotify
that
for
on.
it. I
So
didn't even have Spotify. Like I had to get it for the show, and it is a good show.
Which is crazy because we're
there
on
you go.
Spotify.
Hey,
So he didn't even download, Spotify for our own show. He did it just for yours. It's awesome.
Spotify, roll through with the sponsorship. Come on now, give us some of that money back. All right, that we giving you.
Yeah, please.
Finally. But with that, everybody, thank you for watching the Go Show. Fresh, what do all the aspiring filmmakers, music video directors, commercial work people, music people, people who are creative, what do they got to do before we roll on out of here?
like, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, send it to your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, and everybody else.